Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to take a look at the top 10 teams for the Holiday Cup. The Holiday Cup is going to be available for 1 week only, but let's take a look here. We're going to be only able to use a normal type, grass types, electric types, ice types, flying types, as well as ghost type Pokemon. Don't know what ghost type Pokemon have to do with the holiday, but who knows. We're going to find out together here. We're going to take a look at the top meta. There are some interesting picks that you might not really expect because PvPoke maybe has the wrong moveset on those Pokemon. We're going to take a look at this one as well. Maybe they change it when I upload this one because I told them already. But of course, if you enjoyed those videos, feel free to subscribe and we can move on immediately into the meta. The meta is going to be very heavy around the Vigoroth. You see on the left side here, a Vigoroth with 98.7 as a rating and basically 3.2 difference for the first and the second Pokemon is kind of wild. That's a lot of difference. If you take a look, basically that's the same difference between like 2 and like 7 or something like this as a ranking. You're going to see that the Vigoroth is basically going to be everywhere in this meta, and you should expect to see at least 4 Vigoroth in a set, most likely, because most people are going to run this Pokemon. But you can use it in basically every scenario for any kind of Pokemon. You can use it as a lead, you can use it as a closer, you can use it as a Say Swap. But I would imagine that most people are going to use it as a Say Swap. Otherwise, you have Pokemon like Aurorus, which I actually don't really have a team. You could use it in some teams later on, but like I don't really think it's going to be the best Pokemon anyway. It's just kind of a sim hero here. We have something like the Skarmory available, which is going to be a little bit buffed now. Dunsparce is interesting enough that high, which I did not really expect too much either. We have a team around this one though, so that's going to be nice. We have some electric type Pokemon up here with the Magnezone, the Pachirisu, the Togedemaru. Obstagoon is looking really good. Skeldurges are looking pretty decent. The Stunfisk is looking pretty decent. The Arctibex is kind of okay. But yeah, this is going to be it for the meta. It's definitely very heavy around the Vigoroth, so a lot of teams going to be built either to counter those or to play with those. And we're going to take a look at the most likely, most common team that you're going to encounter first, which is going to be something like the Lantern or the Charjabug in the lead, and then the Vigoroth as a Say Swap, and then either the Obstagoon or the Dapple in the back. You could also argue of going for Dapple Say Swap, or you can even argue for going Girafarig Say Swap and then have the Vigoroth in the back, but that depends on what you really want to run. Lantern is kind of interesting for this meta. You can argue of going for Water Gun over Spark. PvPoke suggests a Water Gun. I put Spark here just to be better against other Lanterns. Both of the movesets are kind of similar, I would say. I think Spark is better, in my opinion, but there is definitely a case to be made for Water Gun, because Water Gun allows you to hit those ground types a little bit better, which is going to be something that is kind of nice. Because you're going to have something like the normal Stunfisk available, which can be a little bit of a trickier one, but I still feel like that Spark is going to be the better move to go for. We have Counter Vigoroth as our Say Swap. It's just going to be everywhere. Like, you're going to see a lot of teams here as well, which are going to have basically Vigoroth / Dapple as a Say Swap, because they are just the best Pokemon for this kind of role in this meta by far. So yeah, that's going to be it for the first team. Very, very common team. Like stuff like this we saw already throughout the years with the cup here as well, with the Holiday Cup. And so now Vigoroth got buffed as well. Lantern is really, really strong in the meta now. Obstagoon is still there, so like, yeah, it's going to be one of the most common teams that you're going to encounter for sure. We can also reverse it kinda and put the Vigoroth in the lead and have 2 electric types in the back, with the Charjabug as a Say Swap and the Lantern in the back usually. Here again, I went for Spark over Water Gun because I feel like it's going to be a little bit better, but you can decide on how you want to decide there. Like, it does not really matter too much. For the first team, you could also, by the way, use Skeledurge in the lead here. I don't really think that Skeledurge would really fit in the back, but Skeledurge is also a cool Pokemon here, but it can kinda break this team, kinda, I would say. At least if you take a look here at the ranking, Vigoroth is going to lose against Skeledurge apparently in the 1-stage Theo Shield scenario, as well as the Charjabug, but yeah, still, you're going to be fine dealing with this one. Also, Magnezone is seemingly a loss here for the Vigoroth, but in the 2-shield scenario, you're going to be able to just counter through it. Next team coming up, we're going to have Skarmory next up. Skarmory is of course one of the Pokemon that got buffed this season. Very cool Pokemon in general. And here we're going to have it in the back. I feel like it's going to have some play here, but it's going to be a little bit tricky because Lantern is a thing. And Lantern might be a little bit tricky if it wants Water Gun here. For this team, I thought about more Spark Lantern. With a Spark Lantern, you're going to be fine. With the Gligar here in the lead, it's going to be okay for you. Otherwise, you might want to go for something like a Chestnut in the lead, which would leave you a little bit weaker against Fire-type Pokemon though, which might be a little bit more common. So this can be a little bit of a tricky one there, but you can see again, Vigoroth, Say Swap, or the Dapple, they're going to be on, like, basically, Also for the teams where I don't have those 2 Pokemon on there, you can just always use it. Like, there's no drawback around it. But if you want to use Vigoroth as a Say-Swap, you kind of have to have a lead that's okay against Vigoroth. Because otherwise, if you're going to encounter Vigoroth in the lead, and you have Vigoroth as your Say-Swap, you're always going to basically lose a switch advantage as well, which is going to just always going to give you basically a huge disadvantage there. So definitely something that you should consider doing there. Here, of course, all leads all have a little bit to play against Vigoroth as well, so it should be kind of okay. Team number 4, we're going to have an anti-Vigoroth team here. Like, if you don't want to play this Pokemon, and if you want to kind of hardwall it, this might be the team that you want to go for. As you're going to see here, we're going to have the Lantern in the lead. This time around with a Water Gun, I feel like it's okay. Just to see also the other Pokemon here, like the other variant of it. But of course, you're going to lose against other Lanturns. We're going to have a Say-Swap, the Palossand here. Palossand is going to have access to Mudshot, Scorching Sands, as well as Shadow Ball. Definitely cool Pokemon for this meta as well. And then you're going to have in the back the Golurk. And Golurk is going to be an interesting one here because Mud Step got buffed, Shadow Punch is kind of cool, Earth Power is kind of cool in the meta. Going to be able to definitely beat something like a Lantern as well in the 2-shit scenario, I would imagine, even though here I guess it's Water Gun Lantern, which might be a little bit trickier. But still, you're going to be okay for this kind of Pokemon there. Again, Lantern is seemingly the only Pokemon that really breaks this team here. Maybe Arctibex as well. Arctibex can be a little bit trickier, I have to admit this, but still, I feel like this team definitely has a lot of play. If you want to have a little bit of a better Pokemon for the Arctibex or the Lantern, you can use something like the Dunsparce, which is going to be able to have super effective damage against both of them. So just in case like you're going to encounter a ton of Arctibex, a ton of Lantern, this might be a Pokemon that you can use as a substitute for the Lantern in the lead. Moving on, we're going to have, you know, the Pokemon that I was talking about in the beginning, which has horrible rankings on PvPoke and is actually really solid because PvPoke, at least at the current time, I told them that they should most likely change it, is running Hex instead of Bubble on Jellicent. And Hex is also cool, like it does look really decent on the meta, but it's like rank 90 something or whatever for the cup, which does not really make too much sense. But if you take a look at Bubble variant, you're going to be able to beat Vigoroth as one of the easiest matchup for you. It's like one of the hardest answers for Vigoroth, but you're also going to be able to beat most of the top meta Pokemon that are not electric type, which is kind of nice. So here we're going to have again the Say-Swap of either Vigoroth, but if you want to be a little bit spicier, you can go for Charjabug. Charjabug going to leave you a little bit more open against Pokemon like the Arctibex though, so I feel like Vigoroth is the better Say-Swap for this team. In the back, we're going to have Lurantis a little bit more over the Galarian, like the normal Stunfisk here. The issue with the Stunfisk in the back would be, if you encounter another Grass-type Pokemon, you kind of have a little bit of a trickier time, because your lead is going to be weak against Grass-type, and if you have a Ground-type in the back, it might be a little bit tricky, but I don't really expect that Grass-type is going to be that common. Of course, here we have Lurantis on this team then instead, but yeah, I don't think that Grass-type is going to be really taking over this meta. There are a lot of Flying types plus Fire types around, so we have to see about this though. Definitely an interesting one. The thing with grass types is, like, other than Lurantis and Chestnut, most of them going to have a weakness to counter. Like Ferrothorn is available, I think, as well as the Credillia is definitely available, and like those don't really want to face up against Vigoroth either, so like it's going to be a little bit trickier for them. So I feel like still this team should work out pretty well. Next one coming up, we're going to have the reverse Jellicent variant here, because I feel like Jellicent is going to be even better in the back, because here's the thing, especially with like the current meta, I'm fairly certain that we're going to encounter a ton of Vigoroth as a Say-Swap, and so if there's Say-Swap against you, like you have a decent lead with like Liga, for example, and the opponent want to swap out, they're going to be really good against, yeah, basically any Vigoroth that wants to swap in, because the Jellicent going to be able to just completely hardwall it, resisting counter plus the body slam and only getting neutral damage from Rock Slide, while doing buffed bubble damage back as well as surf damage is kind of nice. This team here was built based on what I thought the meta would look like, because basically I expected that the Lantern would run Spark more often. Here, of course, PvPoke suggest Water Gun. I feel like that's still Spark going to be the more common one for Spark. It's going to be a way better matchup for you, because your lead is going to be able to deal a little bit better with it. If they run the Water Gun Lantern, you might have to sacrifice your lead and then try to swap into your Vigoroth later on, because Water Gun Lantern is a little bit tricky for this team, because you're going to lose with your Jellicent plus the Gligar against it, so definitely make sure about this. You might want to have a different lead here as well. You could go for a kind of maybe a grass type lead again, as we said in the team before already, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it's going to be definitely still a solid one here. Maybe Water Gun Lantern might be a core breaker for this team though. Next one coming up, we're going to have here one that is around Talonflame, and also with a Chestnut in the back again, which is going to be a fairly solid one, kind of similar to what we saw before already. I don't really want to talk too much about it. But Talonflame looks really great in this meta. You might think here, oh yeah, Lantern, Vigoroth, they all have kind of coverage against you, but even against Vigoroth, I think you can just 2-shield through it with Flame Charge, because like you do so much damage with the fast move, unless they're going to like bait you the entire time. Even Skeledirge might be a little bit of an issue here. You could go for Diggersby in the back, which would give you a little bit more play against Skeledirge, but yeah, really depends on what you want to do here. Still, this team looks really solid, especially the backline looks really good for the current meta. Chestnut looks really good, surprisingly, which I did not really expect, but very interesting one here. Definitely a solid line. Let me know what you think about this one, but we can move on to team number 8. Team number 8 is going to be an interesting one for me as well, because it doesn't have Vigoroth or anything like this in there. Of course, again, if you want to use Vigoroth, you can most likely use it in the lead here, which most likely would work out pretty well for you. But we're going to have the Dragonite as well as the Altaria. Of course, we have a Steel-type lead, which is going to allow you to have some kind of answer against Fairy-type Pokemon, which might be a little bit of a trickier one, plus other Steel-type Pokemon as well for that. But we're going to have the Dragonite as a Safe Swap, and you have the Altaria in the back. Kind of what you want to do here is, you kind of want to realign, which is something that is kind of important for it. And Dragonite should be able to basically realign against most Pokemon that are not Ice-type in the 2-shield scenario, because you have the Dragon Breath damage, you have Dragon Claw, and you have Super Power for all the Steel types, which is kind of important. So I feel like this Pokemon has a lot of potential as a Safe Swap in this current meta as well, because yes, Ice types are available, it is like the Holiday Cup, but the current meta is not really appreciative for like the most Ice types, because you have now Vigoroth that actually going to be even able to beat something like the Frostless, for example, which was like one of the best Pokemon prior, but like now the Frostless was like one of the best Pokemon because it was able to beat the Vigoroth. Now you're going to lose against the Vigoroth, which makes Frostless a little bit trickier. Arctibex is a very decent Ice type as well, but going to lose against the Dragon Breath damage from Dragonite. So I feel like this team is going to have a lot of potential. And yes, Altaria is still very solid, as you can see on the screen as well, going to have better matchups compared to even the Dragonite. So even though the Altaria got nerfed a little bit, this Pokemon still is a very solid one to use. Second to last team, we're going to have a team here around the Litleo. Litleo is